Well, good morning and happy Halloween and welcome to the last day of Vlogtober. And so, as I've been told countless times, and I'm sure you've heard as well, all good things must eventually come to an end. And so today I'd like to spend some time looking back over the last 31 days of Vlogtober and think about some of the things that I've learned along the way. Well, the big obvious thing right off the bat is when I started Vlogtober, I also started going through the artist way. And a lot of the exercises and readings that I've been doing over the last 4 weeks have really informed a lot of the things I've been saying during Vlogtober as well. It's surprising how often that things I would wind up writing in my morning pages would eventually turn up in my vlogs in some way or another. And although I can definitely say that I now have 31 videos to show the work that I've put in over the last month, I also have a bunch of written pages to do the same thing. I think it's really funny that I always seem to start off these Vlogtober vlogs by saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And yeah, it does seem very much like a daunting task, but as the old saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I really have learned a lot about myself over these last 31 days, both in doing the Vlogtober vlogs and, of course, through the artist way. I always thought that the purpose of Vlogtober was to, first of all, show people that they're capable of a lot more creatively than they realize. But I also feel that the best thing about Vlogtober is not only does it allow you to make a lot of videos in a small amount of time, which is a great learning experience because you learn a lot more about the filming and editing process by actually doing it, by having that deadline and also having to crank out videos pretty quickly and having to deal with problems that come up as problems are wont to do. You learn a lot more about the creative process that way. I always felt that Vlogtober works the best when the person making the vlogs is willing to experiment and try new things on video, because Vlogtober gives you the excuse to do that. But then October and Halloween also allows you to do that. You put on a costume and pretend you're somebody else, try on somebody else's skin. And I think that can be a really positive thing. Also, October and Halloween is about endings, and certainly by the time you reach Halloween and Vlogtober, that ending is a part of the process. By the end of Vlogtober, even if you don't do every day, if you do a lot of them, then you wind up with a body of work. And you can look back at that body of work and see some sort of a progression. But like they say in the artist's way, when you open yourself up to creativity, you also find yourself experiencing certain strange moments of serendipity. I wound up talking about that in one of my vlogs this year, but I also noticed that there was a great deal of serendipity within the vlog itself. If you recall from the first Vlogtober vlog, is that part of what I wanted to do is compare and contrast this year's vlog from the one I did back in 2020. And some of the comparisons that you'll see in these vlogs were very much intentional, but some of it absolutely wasn't. Yesterday's vlog about divine sadness, when you compare it to the vlog that I did 2 years ago on the 30th, there's some eerie similarities to them. The 30th day of my 2020 Vlogtober vlog, I talked about a lot of the issues that I had, a lot of the nasty self-talk that went on in my head and how it really hurt and I was going to have to do something about it. And then my 30th day Vlogtober vlog for this year, the one that I posted yesterday, I talked again about those issues I had with self-talk and bad feelings, but solutions I'd come to over the last couple of years and some of the really powerful tools that I'd gained just within this month because I started doing the artist way. And although I had no intention of basically bookending my journey with these two vlogs that were posted literally 2 years separate of each other, it happened. That was the serendipity. And I have to admit, although I don't tend to go for a lot of new agey weird stuff, once again, it happened, even though perhaps it's just a coincidence. So, over the course of this last month of making Vlogtober vlogs, I have spent a little bit of time in YouTube Studio looking over analytics and trying to come up with some correlations in some of the stuff that I was doing and how it was received by the audience. I mean, obviously my videos aren't setting the world on fire at this point, but you actually have an advantage because when I happen to blow up one day, well, you can be a hipster about the whole thing.
Oh, you think you're a Brian Hatcher fan? I was watching Brian Hatcher when he was sitting in his Volkswagen Beetle making talking head videos. You only know him when he was sitting in his expensive car making talking head videos.
One of the things I've tried to do in Vlogtober this year, which I haven't really been that good at in the past, is engaging with the audience, especially people who leave comments, which if you happen to leave a comment for me, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. But for the longest time, my channel has not gotten a whole lot of views and certainly not a lot of engagement. And so when I started getting a little bit of engagement, I let a lot of that stuff slide and didn't respond back because it wasn't something that I even went back in videos to see if anyone was leaving comments. And so I hope no one out there thinks that I was ignoring them because that's not what I was trying to do at all. But I appreciate the comments and I appreciate the likes, and surprisingly enough, I did happen to get a dislike or two in the Vlogtober vlogs, which is always a weird thing because it's supposed to mean that somebody saw your video and didn't like it, but they were engaged enough with the video to leave that thumbs down. So in a weird way, I gotta say, if you were engaged enough in my video that you felt the need to hit that thumbs down button, well, I appreciate that too. And although Vlogtober was never meant to be evergreen content, and I don't know what kind of engagement I should expect on these videos going forward, I have noticed that some of my most popular videos were ones that I have created during Vlogtober, like my ADHD vlog from 2020. And strangely enough, the one video that became the most popular during Vlogtober of this year, and of course obviously popular is a relative term, it was the one about my unboxing of my new keyboard, the clicky one. I'm still trying to figure out why that one started getting way more views than the other ones. I suspect that perhaps it was because the YouTube algorithm saw this video and got a little confused. It's like, clicky, wait a minute. Wait a minute, clicky, wait a minute. That's AMSR, isn't it? Don't the kids love AMSR? Do we need to push this video out? I mean, he talks about ADHD. Is that just another way of saying AMSR? Well, eventually I think that the algorithm figured this was an AMSR and stopped pushing out the video as much as it did. But if any of you out there clicked on that video expecting to get AMSR and didn't get it, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But you know, I do still feel like I owe you something. So the big question is now, what do I do with the channel? I do want to take a little bit of a break, but I don't want to do this 6 months to a year thing that I did last time, and I don't want to basically let the channel stagnate. And I have promised a vinyl video, but I want to take my time with that one. I want to make it a really nice video. I want to put some effort into it, so that's going to take a little bit of time. When I first started the channel, my intention was, because I had just started a writing career, that I wanted people to get an idea about who I was and possibly get to know and like me, and through that also possibly maybe buy some of my works. I also wanted to give people like an inside look at what the life of a writer was like. When I stopped living that life of a writer, I didn't know what I was going to do with this channel. I was hoping that eventually things would come back, and they still may, but at the same time, I didn't want to just leave the channel stagnant. And so I've turned it into a bunch of different things. But I think if there has been a thread that's been running through all of the stuff I've been trying to do on this channel, it's been that I wanted to help people. I wanted to be useful in some way. And of course, part of that has to do with the fact that I've always had this nagging thought that I didn't in myself have an intrinsic value. And so for people to be interested in a channel, I needed to bring whatever value I could create to the channel. And I do think that a YouTube channel should have some sort of a value to it. It needs to be either entertaining or educational or a little bit of both. But as a few of my friends love to tell me on occasion, I sorely underestimate my value to people. But I gotta admit, for somebody like me, accepting that I have an intrinsic value in myself is not that easy. But I think that's been a major hindrance to my channel, because since I don't believe that I have an intrinsic value and feel like I have to create it, then I feel like if I'm going to present myself as a person that has an intrinsic value to an audience, I've got to make something up. And if my friends happen to be right, and maybe there is something about me that people would be interested in knowing or hearing from, then maybe it's time I started to believe them. And although I can be somewhat of a goofy, dark guy sometimes, and I try to give advice when sometimes even I doubt how valuable that advice is, and since I have ADHD and issues in my past, and I've also been informed that I may even be borderline Asperger's, well, all that comes together to basically mean that I practically have a PhD in awkwardness, and maybe I need to start leaning into that. Although now that I think about it, maybe that really doesn't sound like that good of an idea. So you probably noticed that one of the themes running through my Vlogtober vlog for today was I decided to revisit a lot of the old backdrops that I used over the course of the month. And I was going to end today's Vlogtober vlog with one of my classic evening walks in the parking lot. But it decided to rain hard and a lot and all day. And even though I suppose I could still have that walk, quite frankly, I'm just not that committed in the bit. But there was no way that I was going to end today's Vlogtober vlog and the entire series for the year without saying the one thing that I definitely wanted to say, which is thank you. Thank you for sticking along with me on this weird, crazy journey that we've gone through over this month. Thank you for tuning in and making your comments and watching the video and liking it, and that means an awful lot to me. I hope you enjoyed watching them as much as I've enjoyed making them, and after a little bit of a break, which I hope you can't fault me for, I will be back with some more videos. And so until the next video, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.